Okay, awesome. Hey, everyone, and thank you for coming today so we could all discuss this case. Thank you, Kayleigh, Riya, Nehal, and Alyssa. I am excited to discuss this case today about Nate, considering that we all recently attended that conference about young adults with chronic diseases. And I really wanted to today apply Orem's theory that we learned about to the case of Nate, because I think it could be a really helpful tool for us nurses and healthcare providers to support Nate and his family during this time. So Nate is a 18-year-old, just to recap, Nate is our 18-year-old male who was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and he also has a health history of pretty bad anxiety, but that's been under control, pretty well managed with SSRIs and therapy. But this new diagnosis of type 1 diabetes can still lead to panic attacks and stuff like that. So thus far, since his diagnosis, his mother and grandmother, who are his main support system, have been performing all of his cares and managing his diabetes. But he is a senior in high school and going to go off to college to study in Chicago, study piano next fall. And his family is just really worried about his own ability to take care of himself and manage his health well. So to start, I just wanted to reiterate what Orem's theory is and the three main concepts of it, to remind everyone of it. So the first concept that Orem talks about is self-care, and this is the individual's ability to perform on their own and improve their own well-being. This includes aspects of physical health, social health, mental self-care, emotional self-care, and spiritual self-care. And the second key concept that she proposes is the self-care deficit. So this occurs in areas where the individual cannot adequately support and maintain their own health and well-being. And this can be caused by a lack of knowledge, resources, or disability. And the third key concept, which is where we really come in, is nursing system. So this is where the nurse can come in to support the individuals in their self-care and their self-care deficits. In this, we should focus on our plan of care and our interventions on how well the individual, so Nate in this case, demonstrates his ability to care for himself. And we can provide support through various means, such as providing education, care, and providing support in order for him to achieve the self-care. So yeah, how does that sound? Is there anything else that anyone remembers about this theory that they want to add or that pertains to Nate?
No, I think that you explained that beautifully, and you really connected the aspects of the theory well to the case.
Awesome.
I agree with Nehal. I think you did a great job. And to dive a little bit more into the nursing patient system that you discussed, there's 3 different levels of ability that we measure within this. Wholly compensatory, where the person is unable to perform care on themselves. All care is provided by someone else. Partially compensatory, where the person is able to do some self-care, but not all cares are done by themselves. And the final goal where we would like him to be would be supportive or educative, where he is able to perform all self-care on his own, and we simply provide education and support for what if he needs to adjust something or if we see that he's lacking somewhere, but he's able to perform it on his own and receive feedback for adjusting. So from what you've described about Nate and what I recall about his case, I would consider him in the wholly compensatory area. Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes. I also think I'm hopeful because he talks about wanting to take his cares on, but yes, so for sure still in that, but hopefully on the cusp of partially compensatory.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I agree. And the goal at this point, it's the spring before he starts college. We have about 6 months until he'll be enrolled in school. That's plenty of time that's enough time to be working towards this, and we'll see how his progression works. But I think it's realistic for him to be partially compensatory, and the best case scenario would be he's just supportive and educative by the time he's off to school in the fall. His grandmother and mother are the people who provide the most care for him at this time. He is managing both anxiety, and he has the recent diagnosis of type 1 diabetes. So the tasks that Nate will need to be able to perform on his own that he currently does not, he'll need to be able to perform his own blood sugar checks, inject his own insulin, manage his diet so that he has appropriate blood sugar levels, as well as know signs of hypoglycemia and signs of hyperglycemia, so he can seek medical attention when necessary, and have a plan in place, especially for hypoglycemia, having a snack in his backpack at all times, knowing that he feels dizzy. Whatever plan, we need to make sure he has a plan in place, because previously it has been someone else managing that for him. He also will need to We'll need to address with him if he'd prefer to get a new provider in Chicago, or if he will be traveling back to Milwaukee for his appointments. If he's traveling back to Milwaukee, then he needs appropriate transportation. It's a further drive. Or if he's switching to Chicago, we'll need to make sure, A, that he has transportation there, but B, that he's able to find a new provider, both for mental health and for his diabetes management. This may be a spot where the university may have support for him, so we can discuss with him reaching out for if there are any university services, weekly checkups that he might be able to do for low levels of intervention, depending on what they offer at his school. And he also will need to follow his medication for his anxiety and follow up with his appointments for mental health. They may be able to do these virtually, so he'll need to check with his provider. There may be telehealth available. If not, he will also need to reach out either through the university or through his insurance to find mental health in the Chicago area. So some, just to consider for his self-care, there's 3 different areas we're going to look at. For his universal self-care, he has no deficits in this area. He is able to perform his, what would be considered acts of daily living and his regular care. I see no deficits in the universal care that he has for himself. He maintains everything he needs for his basic being, and with the help of his parents, and with the development he has. Under his developmental self-care, he also has no delays. He does not have delays in speech, cognition, or motor function. He's able to walk independently, and he reads above the 6th grade level. He's a very gifted piano player, and he made it into a very good program. So I see no concerns for his development physically, mentally, or with his speech. The final area is health deviation, and this is an area where his self-care will be differing from his peers. This is related to his diabetes as well as his anxiety. And his peers will not be checking their blood sugar. It's likely his peers won't really care too much about their diet. It's not something that the average person has to keep control over. And so this is an area where he's deviating from the people around him. He also does have severe anxiety that is well controlled with therapy and an SSRI, but there have been adjustments to the dosage, and with the added stress of going to school, he may need that SSRI changed. And this is something that he may not feel comfortable talking about with his peers, or may make him feel singled out from the people around him. Are there any other suggestions we have, or any other thoughts on what I have said so far for his self-care deficits?
I think you did a great job tying together how his anxiety and diabetes can definitely affect each other, and we definitely need to keep that in mind while working with him. Considering that his mom and grandma expressed concern regarding that, his anxiety makes him shut down and avoid tasks. I really appreciate you tying those 2 together.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nehal.
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, yeah. And like you mentioned, it's going to be a new transition for him into a different city. So it's very important for us to create a treatment plan that just addresses, of course, his mental health, but also finding the support that he needs to go into a new place and have that support system to help his decisions. So we can talk about that more.
Yeah. So Kayleigh, I know you were talking about his capabilities, but you didn't get into the deficits, did you?
Not extensively.
Okay.
More of where I see him being at.
Okay, yeah. So I do think that there are some deficits that I'm a little bit concerned about, and you guys can let me know how you feel. But he's almost 18 years old at this point, and I don't think that he has any previous experience in understanding and managing diabetes. So I think that might be a little bit difficult for him, to make time in his day to actually care for himself when he's dealing with this new disease. And then I'm not really sure if he has any coping mechanisms developed for his new diagnosis or what he does currently. Because especially being at the age that he's at, it's kind of hard for teenagers to really develop a solid set of coping mechanisms. So I'd be interested to discuss that with him a little bit more to see how we can help him. And I think that going into college, I think having this new diagnosis is going to be somewhat difficult for him. He might be comparing himself to his peers and see that like he's different and might be having a little bit of an identity crisis. So I think talking to him and communicating with him about like, how do you feel and like kind of have family involvement too. Maybe we can find out how much family is involved through our next meeting that we have with him. And then I do think that it might be difficult for him just because college is out of the way from where his doctor is. So just to make it to his appointments. So kind of check in on transportation. Is he going to have a car? Is he going to be able to have a way to get to these appointments? Because I think that is very important because telehealth doesn't really work well. I mean, it could work well, but I think he would really benefit from an in-person appointment as well. And then kind of just looking at his insurance status as well, if he's going to be able to afford his insulin and his other diabetes equipment. I'm forgetting the name about it. I know we discussed it earlier. What was the monitor? Yeah, that. So if he's going to be able to afford that, and like I said, just kind of helping him feel comfortable with his diagnosis and knowing help him understand that this is now a part of him, because we know that this isn't really a curable disease. So yeah, how do you guys feel about the deficits that I discussed?
I definitely agree. It's going to be harder, especially as a freshman going into college out of the state, I would assume. Um, he could go, feel low self-esteem, be depressed because he doesn't have his mom and grandma there. So I think it is important to find a therapist and, if we need to switch him medications for his SSRI,
Mm-hmm.
just work with him, whatever. If it doesn't end up working, we could always switch medications, but I think it's definitely important to keep an eye on him, especially like those maybe that first semester, it's usually hard on students, but yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, I think so too. So just to kind of go over some of the questions that I put together that we can ask him. So I want to know how his anxiety impacts his self-care. And this kind of connects back to Orem's process of nursing, which we kind of got into earlier. So, like I said, how does this anxiety impact his self-care? And what factors affect his ability to care for himself? Just kind of getting to know his day-to-day. And then also, how confident does he feel about managing his diabetes? Just to get an idea because he is going to be alone in college. And then I would like to know a little bit more about his day-to-day routine. What are his classes going to look like? What's the load going to look like? Just so we can, as healthcare members, get like a plan together for him, which I have a little bit later on. But does anybody have any questions that they wanted to add that would be beneficial to ask him?
Yeah, I think it could be also good to ask him, like, what does he need from us to, like, feel supported and, like, empowered to take care of himself and his diabetes and his anxiety? Like, what specifically does he feel is lacking? And then asking him if he can tell us of, like, specific times where he feels that his anxiety or emotions affected his ability to, like, take care of himself or just carry out, like, his day-to-day life, and just seeing what leads to that and, like, what interventions can we put in place to prevent that. But otherwise, yeah, I really liked the other questions you posed.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that sounds great as well. And hopefully it's a beneficial conversation. I know that sometimes teenagers are a little bit hesitant to get into all of that, but I think given his new diagnosis, he hopefully is more open to share details about his personal life. So the next step, I think, would be to discuss a plan of his care. What do you guys think?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So
agree.
the first thing that I think we should do is explore stress reduction techniques. So does anybody have any ideas on what we could suggest for him?
I
Um,
think that, oh, sorry, I have a quick
Okay.
idea on that one. Uh, Number one, we want him to have trust with whoever he is speaking with his therapist. So if he is switching therapists, making sure he feels comfortable speaking with them and being truly honest about how he feels. And talking about techniques he's used in the past, he's used therapy for several years. It's likely that he has some type of plan in place. Journaling is a very common one that can help with anxiety for identifying emotions and what may be triggering anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't do that already, that might be a good thing to suggest, especially entering college.
Yeah, I think that's great too. And sometimes college campuses have therapists too. I mean, if that's something that he has a hard time accessing, if it's like far away from him now. And then next, I said to discuss and educate some techniques of diabetes management. Which obviously would serve him very well. And then kind of implementing some time management techniques, such as setting alarms on when to take your insulin, following a specific diet plan during the day, and then discussing some food options when he's going out with friends or family that correlate with his, diabetic specific diet, the low carb, low sugar. And then kind of communicating with some of the nurses that are on staff at the university he's going to, just to let them know that there is a student at the university that has diabetes, so that they are aware and they can help him if he needs it. So anything anyone else wants to add?
He, sorry, let's go ahead.
You're fine.
Also, like in suggestion to the nursing support that you mentioned, Nehal, we can also look for different groups on campus that are aware, like mostly health clinics or any type of like club that is available. Because I know, like, since he is transitioning from the support system of his mother and grandmother, it's going to be very hard to find that in person where he's going. So having the support of his peers or just people who understand what he's
Yeah.
going through is not going to isolate him from anything else. So having that
agree.
in place is also going to help manage his anxiety mostly, but also his condition.
And then that way he can have a friend to go to if he wants to rant or just, get through school. So I think that's really great. And then kind of just to evaluate if what we did is working. I think that it'd be a good idea to have him come in maybe twice over the summer, just so we can talk to him and see how he's feeling about going into the new school year. And then once school starts, kind of have a check-in at the beginning of the semester to see how he's adjusting. And then maybe towards the end or the middle, talk to him again, because I assume he'd probably be coming home close to the holidays. So maybe that'd be a good time to get in touch with him too and see if he can come in to see us. And then maybe we can also get in contact with any family, if he wants to bring them to the appointments to see how they're feeling and if they're able to provide him with some emotional support with his condition. And then obviously the goal is to just have him as independent as possible through his cares. We kind of want him to get to that final level that we discussed in the theory,
Educative and supportive.
the educated and supportive, yes, that part. So we want him to get to that. So I think that through all of this, the techniques of coping mechanisms, meal prepping, having that solid support system will really help him get to where he needs to be. So, yeah. What do you guys think about our plan?
Yeah, I think it's great. And I also think you just did a really good job about like capturing like within that plan, like the 3 steps that Orem proposes of like the diagnosis, the design, and the like producing. So yeah, I just really appreciate all your thoughts on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think it's very realistic to have him come in twice over the summer so we can move him through this in between. So he's wholly compensatory. We want to get him all the way down to educative. So checking to see, and if he is partially compensatory when he goes to school and we're working towards him being educative in the future, we'll have a better assessment with realistic goals that he can achieve throughout our follow-ups.
I agree.
All right. I just want to add on, in order to prepare him for when he starts college, just think of some methods that we can help him with. So, one of them would be acting, and teaching while also guiding, Nathan and his family, how to inject, his insulin, how to check his blood sugars using the Dexcom. I know that's very difficult at first. Um, what meals to watch out for, when to check his sugars and all that. Um, and also providing physical and psychological support. So some of this would be just as a nurse providing comfort for the family and knowing that they can trust you and they can go to you for any questions, as well as, promoting the development. So this would be gaining like knowledge of how to do it and how to feel comfortable with it, especially being alone in college. You can get just what's the word? You can not keeping track of your things because there's events and parties and whatnot. So it's just always promoting to keep on track with his things. And then like what are the factors that nurses need to have in order to help him succeed, especially when he's away at home. I think a nurse should definitely know how to be communicative with the family. If they can call you or you can reach out to them to see how he's doing. Also, with the insurance situation, you can also help with them with that. Also mentioned earlier, if he has to switch providers, also communicating with other health professionals in Chicago that insurance accepts. Also, we need to consider Nathan and his family's views and if the religion affects, his care plan. So keeping in mind of that as a nurse and being respectful and understanding if they have any disagreements, as well as again mentioned collaboration and teamwork, meeting keeping in touch with his therapist or a psychiatrist if he needs someone, or even a psychologist, especially school nurses at his college, just communicating with them and making sure everybody's on board with the same care plan. And lastly is to be supportive, to just understand and feel for this for Nathan and his family, especially Nathan. He's entering college, which is really hard for students to, get involved with and have fun. So I just really think we should be supportive and give him positive energy, to take care of himself. And he can also have fun and, be like everybody else if he takes care of himself. So, yeah, that's what I think. I don't know if you guys have any other suggestions.
No, I think what you said was pretty spot on. I think, yeah, no suggestions from my end.
Thank you.
Perfect. And I think that's really important for us as well as to build that relationship with Nate and his family, because in order for him to go to the stage he is currently at, which is fully compensatory, where his family members are mostly the support system that he has for his care into like what we want, which is the kind of the educative, supportive or basis that we want him at. It's very important to develop that relationship beforehand. So thank you, Alyssa. And other things to address with that is just, of course, like the plans we talked about is like developing smaller goals that he can do mostly overall. So like he has a little bit over 6 months until he moves. So making plans with the family and with Nate, oh, like you can check your blood sugar this week and then we can slowly build on that, or like teaching more about meal prep and just low sugar, low carb diet, or even like getting in touch with the school cafeteria in order to provide those meals for him so he has that backup. And then also, like we mentioned with Kayleigh, just having or making that support system available with nursing staff, with of informing the university that he has this condition, will need it. So that is very important to make little steps towards that goal. But I feel like the number one thing that we have to kind of address first is, of course, the mental health of Nate and also his guardian. So I know his grandmother and mother are very protective over his health, and it kind of does affect their decision, and they're eager to let him move across to Chicago. So in order to address that, like explaining to Nate and also the guardians that in order to help him facilitate his career and his life and the goals that he wants, it's very important for him to address these little things beforehand. So we can work by, just like we said, introducing a supportive system or having friends or that type of those people around to help him understand and grow. But yeah, so like we mentioned before, just checking in to see if these interventions have been successful overall. It's like, of course, we will want to check in once or twice during the summer, but like Nehal also mentioned in the end, like whenever holidays roll around, we want to see how that transition went, because we know like the first semester everything's new, everything's kind of very overwhelming for, especially for a college student in general, just having those new classes, new environment. But in addition to his disease or what he's going through, we want to make sure that that transition has been well. So of course, like seeing if he is able to get to that self-care independence, like we're hoping for the support of educative, but like if it's not completely there, that's okay. We can develop a new treatment goal for him, or just seeing like improved health outcomes, like he's able to take care of his insulin, his like levels or his blood sugar, he hasn't been having any highs and lows, or just like the confidence within him will also be empowering to see, not only during this transition, but like in life in general. Like this is a really big hurdle that he has to like complete, and then if like he is able to do that, he's gonna be so set forward for the rest of his life too. So it's like kind of explaining and encouraging that can help this transition as well. So thank you, everyone. And this was a great meeting. If there's anybody has anything else to add for his how to help Nate, please do tell.
No, thanks, Riya. You ended it on a super positive note, and obviously we all want the best for him. And this meeting is kind of just to discuss a plan and kind of talk about, what he's going through and how we can get there for him. So thank you, guys. Does anybody else have anything to add?
No,
I think
Thank you. I think we're off to a great start. So
yeah.
Awesome.
we'll check in a few months.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Yep.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.
Oh, did I just? Is it still recording? I'm so confused.
It says it's still recording, so I don't know. But she's gone now, so I don't think it can record if she's gone.
Okay, hopefully she just like edits the beginning and the end.
Yeah, I can stop. Do you want me to stop the recording?
Oh, you're recording?
No, I'm not, but I can stop it.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.